Welcome to the Your Life After Tech podcast. This is episode 4. I'm Debbie Levitt. Don't forget to check out our lifeaftertech.info multiverse, including our book, Discord community, coaching, and more. Because you might be done with tech, tech might be done with you, or you're thinking about adding non-tech work to your tech career. Today's guest is John Braine, JohnBraine, and you can find him on Instagram as Trontsephore, Trontsepphore. John is staying in tech and is currently employed as a UX designer, but he's also been ramping up his artistic and musical side. These are not new areas for him, but he's been getting back into them more and specifically carving out time in his week for these endeavors. It's a lot to balance, but you've got to make time for your passions. Let's get to know John.
Yeah, so it's funny, I was just thinking today that it's actually come for a little circle, because when I first got my computer in the 90s, it was actually to start making music, to start making electronic music. It's the only reason I got a computer. I didn't think I'd be clever enough to use a computer before that. And then I got obsessed with the web, taught myself web design. I wasn't working in any kind of tech or office job at the time. And yeah, it was pretty much all self-taught. Did a bit of contracting for a while as a web designer. Then, quite early on, I did a basic web design course. Got some jobs as a web designer, and that was coding and design. And I traditionally did not go to college after school for many reasons, but I eventually did a master's in multimedia in Trinity College Dublin. And then straight after that, I kind of had a lot of good offers because I had a lot of experience. I had about 10 years actual experience, and then I had the piece of paper also to say that I could do it, and the training. I also did some follow-up web kind of UX design courses online with Joe Natoli, who I consider one of the best teachers out there. And then I've been working as a UX designer for, God, I'd lose count now, but on top of the web design stuff, I've been working as a UX designer, God, nearly 15 years now. So I'm in my current role a couple of years. So I've been deep in tech for a long time, and then I decided that I've kind of in the early days I had a couple of releases out of the electronic music. Then I had children and marriage and all that stuff, and in the last few years I've got back to music and art, and I've had a new release out in vinyl a few months ago. I have my first electronic music live show coming up at the start of November, which I've been putting a lot of work in to try and get ready for that. And I have in the last few years, I was wondering, I really wanted to get back to visual art, and I was wondering if I'd have to go back to college to do that. But I actually just kind of stumbled across my medium recently. I started doing a mixture of watercolor, collage, and ink work on top of that. And I just found my medium. And I got offered a slot at a market. What you call them? Kind of basically one of those markets where you can sell a flea market, and sold a good few pieces of art. So I kind of and now I kind of pretty much spend all my time making music and art, but I'm still holding down the tech job during the day. So
and I wanted to talk more about that, because you are certainly for the foreseeable future staying in tech. You've got a UX design job you've been at for a few years, but you caught my eye on LinkedIn when you commented under one of my posts, and you said that your Instagram bio or something like that said, and I'm going to get this wrong because it's from memory, but it was something like, DJ, artist, and maker, and messer, and raver, and designer, and one of these pays the bills, and the rest matter. And so I thought maybe you could talk to us a little bit about kind of getting more into those entrepreneurial things when you're still staying in tech.
Yeah, well, I sometimes think that might get me in trouble saying one pays the bills and the rest matter. Like the job does matter as well, and I am kind of, when I'm in my job, I am like serious about my work, and I try to do my best at my role. But it's really, I think some people, especially early in their career, their kind of career is almost their persona. Like you see some
Mm.
people, their Twitter, maybe they'd be talking about design all day, whereas to me that's it's something I'm quite passionate about design and UX and good UX, but to me, it's not where kind of my real passion lies, and that really is with art and music and DJing and producing and raving and yeah, going out dancing with friends, and that's kind of where my passion lies, and I also find um, like I really, when I'm either making music or making art, I find it like extremely meditative. So there's all that kind of passionate side of it, and it's not. You mentioned the word entrepreneurial, so I'm not sure. Well, I'd love to get to the stage where I make a living purely out of my art, and I am starting to sell more. And yeah, music wise, I'm starting to get more gigs and sell more music and that kind of thing. But I'm not. I think it might always be more of a side hustle slash hobby. Um, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I mean, if the art like it's. I think it's extremely hard to make a living as a musician, particularly. I think electronic musician these days. Every second person's a DJ and a producer, and there's a lot of visual artists there as well. But I think yeah, I definitely would like to keep going with that. Still, like try to sell more, try to put more of a focus. Like I do have an Etsy store, but I haven't really promoted it too much. I'm about to add a lot more content. I have like several artworks currently with a printer getting scanned and printed, so I will start pushing that a bit more in the
Okay,
future.
so how do you find the time with work and kids? And it sounds like so much passion is in the art and the music. How do you find the time to pursue that?
I think a really big thing is that I don't have a TV anymore.
Aha.
I hear so many people like say to me, God, I don't know how you find the time to do all that art and music and everything else. And then, a minute later, they'd be saying, "Have you seen season 4 of whatever?" And I do watch the odd thing on the computer, but not like I got separated a year and a half ago, and I did not bring my big TV with me, and I'm glad of that. And I used to be a big movie fan, and I like I'll watch the odd thing, but generally I finish work every day, have my dinner, and then it's music and art all night. And then, and I do cook for the kids once during the week, and I see the kids a lot at the weekend. I bring my daughter horse riding every Saturday and Sunday, so that does take up a lot of uh, good time that I enjoy, but that does take up a lot of time. So in some ways, I actually have more time in the during the week, because there's kind of this routine of work, dinner, art, music, whereas the weekends it is a lot of the time with children and socialize with friends. So yeah, it's mostly like 5 days a week. I'm kind of, yeah, either um, you know, working. I guess I don't even. I was about to say working from dawn to dusk, but I don't really. The art of music just doesn't feel like working to me. It just feels like pleasure. So yeah, really just every afternoon and anywhere I can fit in. And in fact, because I have a live gig coming up, and I've actually never played live before, and I'm still trying to figure out how to do that. At the moment, I'm bringing my music everywhere. I mean, like I literally had a mini studio in the car when I brought my daughter horse riding at the weekend. So yeah, I'm just squeezing it in everywhere that I can.
Amazing. And one thing that I thought of is I wonder how much time you put into things like social media, because I found that many years ago when I finally deleted Facebook, I felt like I got 60 hours back in my life each week. It
Yeah.
probably wasn't exactly 60, but can I ask if kind of leaving some of the social media sites or being involved there less has added to this time you have?
Not really. Still a bit of a time suck for me. That's something I struggle with to juggle. I had like, and I've read all the books. Like, I can't remember. There is like I've read various books about like giving up screens and getting away from social. And I think it's Cal Newport has a really good one. And after, I can't remember what it's. I think it's called Deep Work or some. Digital Minimalism is the name of
Oh,
his book.
okay.
And after I read that, I ditched Instagram, Facebook, TikTok for a whole month and didn't miss it. But then it crept back in, and but I find it's kind of hard to get the balance right, because especially with music and art, you want to be on social media to share your work, and like whether it's like music or art, it's like that's kind of, in some ways, that's where I network with other musicians and other artists a lot. So it's very hard. And then I kind of hate the fact that a lot of my messages come from Instagram messages. So I occasionally delete Instagram from my phone and then I completely miss messages. So it's hard trying to find the balance for that. And I did. There was this really good app called Freedom, and it like completely blocked everything for certain periods of the day. But I found an accidental loophole. So then I was back to my own self control, which just doesn't work. I'm actually thinking of getting one of those jars with a lock on it and a timer to put my phone in. So yeah, that is a bit of a battle, and I'm constantly, sometimes I will try and just turn my phone off for a couple of hours, stick it in the shed. But with music, I find, with the music and art, actually, once I get into that, and I get into that kind of, I can never remember what it's called, but when you kind of get into that deep focus mode
Mm-hmm.
where you just kind of get lost in time, and I
Yeah.
forget everything else. So I get that with flow, kind of a flow state. I get that with music, when I'm making music, and I get that when I'm making my art. So once I get started, I forget about the phone, I forget about the social media for hours. But yeah, no, it is definitely still a battle at times, time suck and a distraction that I'm yeah, constantly battling with.
Yeah, and that flow state is one of the main hallmarks, in my opinion, of that passion, that you know you're doing
Yeah,
what is your passion, and for some people, your reason for being when you feel like I've no sense of time, I've no sense of food, I'm just
yeah.
immersed in this thing. And so it'd be really interesting if you can end up kind of turning that into more of a business. But I guess at the same time, do you ever worry that if it were more commercial or you were able to sell more art or music, would that change your relationship to it?
Yeah, well, there's always that fear that if it became I was actually talking to an interesting artist recently. I bumped into him on the street. He's a street artist, and I was talking to him, and I was saying, oh, I'd love to be a full-time artist. And he he's a very straightforward guy, and he kind of put me in his place. And he says, it's a job just like any other, and I have to, looks like great fun out here painting on the street, but I have to work really, really, really hard. But I got the impression he still was passionate about it and he still enjoyed it. And there is that fear when I think you turn a passion into a job, then it becomes, then it just becomes another job. But I don't know. Yeah, I still, I'd be willing to take that risk to, and then there's all that old cliche, if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. But I don't think it's ever that simple. I think anything that you're doing for money, that you have to do for money, that you're doing every day, does become some kind of a job, even if it's the fact that, the selling, the marketing, the tax, all that stuff maybe becomes more the job. I still think I would enjoy the actual task of creating. I just find it like so meditative. It's like almost like meditation for me when I'm doing those things. Yeah.
Yeah, what your
And
story reminds
sometimes
me. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, I was going to say, sometimes I do get that when I'm actually in my job, when I'm prototyping. I do get into that kind of flow state, but it's kind of not often, because even within like the day job, there's so many distractions. You might be getting deep into like designing, working on a prototype, and then you have to stop for a meeting, or you get a message popping up on Teams. So it's kind of harder to get into that state at work, I find.
Yeah, that makes sense. We could jokingly blame teams for that, but it's the humans. I was thinking your story reminded me of something a few years ago. I knew an artist who was trying to quit whatever his day job was, and he was trying to strike out more of his own and get a Patreon and do some of his own
Yeah.
creative stuff and sell that. And my thought was, ooh, how can I best support him? Ooh, I need some artwork done. Maybe I can pay him to do this thing that I need. And when I approached him with it, he got kind of angry at me. He was like, I
Oh,
didn't leave that job to take commissions from people. And I was like, oh,
oh,
holy cats. Like, I thought I was supporting
yeah.
and helping you and, helping you not have the day job, but it turns out I'm just as evil. So it's
Oh, I
kind of an
find that weird.
interesting
Yeah.
questions about where do those lines get drawn?
Well, I've since got two commissions, and I'm honored. I was so honored to be asked that people would appreciate my work so much that they'd. A friend of mine commissioned a portrait for his girlfriend for her 40th birthday, and they were both delighted with it. I was delighted with it. It was win-win. I got paid. And then another woman who I met recently, she commissioned a portrait of Tom York from Radiohead for her graduation present for her niece, and that one's even better because it's a commission, but that's one I will be able to print and resell. So yeah, no, I'm I'm all for commissions. And I yeah, I don't know. I kind of find it even hard to see why you'd get insulted. You can always just turn them down, but yeah, no,
Well,
I'll take any commission.
yeah, I was gonna say he sure taught me. I've never asked him again.
Yeah, I guess now, like there is though. The only thing is, there is. I still would like it to be. I don't know. I wouldn't like to get into like every single piece of art I do is somebody that like if it is, well, it's not always a portrait of a person, but if it is, it's genuine. It's usually somebody that I'm interested in, and I'm a fan of. So I wouldn't. Yeah, I don't know. It wouldn't bother me too much to do portraits of artists or celebrities that I'm not a fan of. I did one of my favorite pieces actually was I did for my daughter's birthday. I did Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift. It was one of my favorite pieces. So yeah, no, I'm open to that. Yeah.
There you go, everybody. Open to commissions. When
Yeah.
we think about one of the things I like to ask on this podcast is to think about the work that you're doing, and it could be the UX design work or the art and music work. And I like to get people to try to tie it back to their core personal qualities or kind of your deep personality traits that make you who you are. How would you say some of your work relates to those deep personal traits?
Um, I think it may be a deep personal trait of mine is that I've always been a bit obsessive about something. Like if I get into something, I get into it in a big way. But like when I was 12, I I got a rabbit, and then within months I had a compound with 50 rabbits. I used to sell rabbits to children in the neighborhood. I used to make my own rabbit mix and sell it to the kids who bought rabbits. I had a rabbit club. The same when I get into music, was all in. Um, and then and when I did get into design initially and web stuff, like I was obsessed. I read every book, did every course. So yeah, no matter what I do, I kind of get into it in a really really big way. Like I really to it. Like um, yeah, I think it's that kind of obsessive nature. And then I do have ADHD. I got diagnosed a couple of years ago after my son did, and I think that is kind of a lot of my traits do cross over with that kind of obsessiveness and getting into that kind of deep work and flow state that is like quite common with ADHD people. So yeah, I don't exclude that from my personality. It's all part of the same lovely package. So yeah.
Yeah, any other kind of core personality traits? Like if I said, and this is going to be a tough one, so you
Yeah.
you can pass, but if I said, what are some of the things about yourself that you love? Do you think you could answer that?
Ah. Um, I think Well, the first thing that pops into my head is that I am passionate about anything that I get into, but not to get into that again. I try to be a good person. I really try to be a good person. I try to do the right thing with other people, whether that's in work or friends or even people that I interact with in day to day in shops or whatever. And I learned recently that I don't try to be. I have a problem with the word nice because I think nice means you'll kind of you'll bend over. Like I can be a bit of a people pleaser, and I'm trying to get away from that. So I try to be a good person without always being a nice person because I will stand up for myself if I have to. I'll try to get away from the people pleasing. So yeah, I try to be a good person, I guess. Yeah.
I think you're succeeding. I know that
Thank you.
some of our listeners are probably trying to go more in the direction you have, where they're balancing
Yeah.
a tech job or staying in tech with some of the things they are truly, truly passionate about. Do you have any advice for people trying to go more in that direction?
I think just go for it. I really like. I think people, and I definitely did. I was thinking for years, oh, will I, will I go try and go back to art college? Will I try and do an evening course? And those options are there, but I think they're. It's almost like when you have a big job to do and it's a bit daunting, and the best thing to do is to break it into like smaller tasks. And I think that's true for any other kind of creative endeavors or hobbies as well, rather than like saving up for a big course. Just start doing it. Like get onto Udemy and do it. You can get a course. I've done some amazing courses on Udemy for 10 quid,
Right.
and whether it's music, art, or UX design, there's amazing courses out there, and just like buy what you need. Buy the I did an oil painting course during lockdown, and I just got stuck in and kind of devoted my time to it. And I just think, yeah, ditch the TV, put a blanket over the TV, try and get out of that. I think that's the biggest. And I know how easy it is to, you've had a day's work, you've done dinner, you've had your dinner, you're putting the kids to bed, you're tired, all you want to do is crash on the sofa and watch TV. But I think it's good to get out of that habit. And actually, one really I think it is about building habits. I read a really good and really specific book about something like Good Habits for Electronic Music Production. It was a very
Oh, that's
specific
very
book,
specific.
but one of the big yeah, but one of my biggest there is a lot of good tips, but one of my biggest and best takeaways from 15 minutes of music every day. Because I find don't if you don't do, like, for example, music one day, then it turns into a week, then it's a month, and before you know it, you haven't done any music in 2 months. Whereas if you do it 15 minutes every day, it keeps the habit up, and then more often than not, it turns into an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. So it's like this is like quite nerdy and stuff, but I have like a spreadsheet. Sometimes I print it out with goals for the day, and like it's. I know some people go a bit too far at this, but it works for me. So I might have I have a tick box to make sure I've done a minimum amount of steps every day. I've done meditation every day, which doesn't always happen. I've done my 15 minutes of music, 15 minutes of art. It kind of keeps me honest on a lot of things, and I kind of keep an eye on it. And of course, like, a big part of that is then I will look at this now and then, and I'll see, oh, I haven't done any art in the whole week. I haven't done meditation, and that kind of helps me keep my habit in check. And I'm definitely not perfect at it. I don't do all this stuff every day, but it is good to just, yeah, habit forming and doing just a minimum amount a day. Yeah.
Yeah, and I like the idea that you might then notice if you have kind of the reverse habit of, okay, I missed a couple of days, but when does missing a
Yeah,
couple of days turn into missing a week or longer? And I've been
exactly.
in that space lately as well, because unfortunately I got COVID a few weeks ago, and I did not want to go to karaoke. I did not want to sing.
Yeah,
I didn't want to spread COVID at everybody.
yeah,
And then even when I got home and I started testing negative, I've been coughing a lot. I didn't want to sing, and now
sure.
I feel like I haven't done music in a few weeks. I feel like, oh gosh, I should have been following John's system, and even if I'm coughing every few lines, I should have just been going for it anyway.
Yeah, or even it's just good to remember though. It doesn't matter how long you've stopped something like this for. But the important thing is just get started again as soon as you feel well, as soon as you get your time back, as soon as you can, because that's when things can start slipping away. But when you, I don't know, when you have it in mind that you want to do these things every day, yeah, the important thing is to just start again rather than think you've failed in any way because you haven't done it for 2 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think a lot of people, whether they're staying in tech or thinking about leaving tech or worried that they're not going to find that tech job, they feel like I've failed. And then
Yeah.
I think they get closed off to, I don't want to take that course. I don't want to read that book. I don't want to try that thing. I'm a failure. Have you found anything with yourself, if you've ever felt that way, that helped you kind of spiral back out of that?
Yeah, not really. Just in the, I find like calendar months help. Like for example, if I've just like lost all my good habits, then I'll go, okay, 1st of October, I'm gonna start everything again. I'm gonna print out my chart. I'm gonna keep an eye on all my goals. So yeah, yeah, it's as simple as that. I find every month is a good time to kind of reset and maybe even like remove some goals, add some new ones. Like I don't go really hard on myself on this kind of thing. It's just like kind of a gentle reminder of and it's also like a lot of these things are not just for productivity, but they're for my mental health. Like I try to run a few days a week and meditate and journal, and these are all on my list as well. And I know if I kind of slip too much on any of these things, then my mental health will slip as well. So it's like I have a lot of goals just to kind of keep me, you know, just as well as kind of productive. So yeah, I think yeah, the calendar start is good for that.
Yeah, thanks for that idea. So let's say someone wants to get in touch with you or follow you online or commission a work or go to your show. Or can you tell us some places where we can find you online and connect with you in a healthy way?
Yeah, I'm probably most active on Instagram. That is my favorite place for kind of connecting with other creative people, whether it's music or art. So yeah, I do have a funny handle on Instagram, Trontophore, Trontsepphore, which comes from a star system in an Ian Banks novel when I was trying to think it originally was just my username, and I was trying to think of a name that wouldn't already have been used, and then I ended up, yeah, just recently I've actually used it as my recent release. That was my artist name. So if I
Okay.
used to just use John Braine for my music, but now I use, yeah, Trans4 as my actual artist name. But that's my Instagram handle as
And will
well.
we find the art and the music on the same Instagram account?
Yes, and much else.
And much
Art,
else.
music, raving, messing. Yeah.
Sounds great. And of course, I bumped into you on LinkedIn, but that might be the best place to connect with you, perhaps as a UX designer.
Yes, indeed. I pretty much keep. I have been meaning to, like I say, when I update my Etsy, I am going to post that on LinkedIn as well, but I haven't yet. Yeah, that's mostly kind of strictly UX stuff. Although sometimes I post music stuff there as well, because in some ways that is, yeah, work as well.
Okay,
But
great. Well, then I hope
yeah,
people
I'm
listening
open to
will,
connections. Yeah,
yeah, I hope people listening will find you somewhere and follow and connect. I like to
indeed.
give the guests the last word. So, any other final thoughts or advice, knowing that our listeners are out there floating in the what's next for me universe?
Just that it doesn't have to be either or. It doesn't have to be like or art. If you kind of manage your time a little bit better, a little bit less TV, you can do both. Set like the minimum time for a little bit of you know art and passion in the evenings. You can definitely easily do both. It doesn't have to be either or. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you again for being on the podcast.
Yeah. Thank you. It was fun. Great to talk to you.
Thanks.
It's whatever, and it's never. Is it better?